my name is Bailey and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about series I have not finished, plus duologies, plus like trilogies, anything that has multiple books, things I have not finished for one reason or another. The reasons are assorted and there's no particular order, but I would like to say, if you see a book or a series that you have a particular vested interest in, comment below and tell me which ones you think I should prioritize reading, because some of these have been going on for so long, like I've been just behind for so long that I'm just like, should I continue reading them? Is it worth it? So yeah, tell me if it's worth it or not. I've got a few here, and there's probably more if I really look through my Goodreads shelf, but like, these are the ones I looked at my shelf and was like, oh, you haven't finished that. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first one we're going to start with is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I have read all the way up to Empire of Storms, and I just have not finished Tower of Dawn, The Assassin's Blade, and Kingdom of Ash. And now this series and this author is it's a whole dilemma with me, because I loved ACOTAR, and I really like most of the series, but then like, once I kind of got to Heir of Fire and beyond, I started to not like this series as much, and Sarah J. Maas has had a lot of controversy just with like diversity and stuff like that. So like, I don't know, I've got a waning interest, but I also have this opinion that, and this is more around Tower of Dawn and the fact that Tower of Dawn is necessary to read. My opinion is that a novella should not be necessary to read a series. I think that is, I don't know, like the whole point of a novella is just to add on, not to be a necessary part of a story. So I think it's kind of ridiculous that Tower of Dawn is a necessary book to read, because it's a novella, but it's like over 600 pages and necessary for the last book. And then it comes to Kingdom of Ash, which is like ridiculously long. I am sorry, but like, it's just ridiculously long. And I have it on my shelf and I've tried to read it and I'm just like, no, it's too long. So one day I'll probably finish this series, but like, it's just, I don't know, I have mixed opinions regarding these books, this author, and everything really is going on. But yeah, I don't know, I don't have much interest in these characters anymore. I don't like where their characters have gone, so I don't know how interested I am in like really seeing their story come to a close, because I've already been spoiled for the ending of this anyway. If you don't know what these books are about, it follows Selena Sardathian, and she is this like high-class assassin, and she was put in prison, but then she's taken out of prison to compete in this like event where these criminals and such are competing to become the king's champion, and that's really how the series starts. It been like veers away from that, but it starts out like that. So you probably know what Throne of Glass is about. It's pretty popular. Let's go with a less popular one now, because I just did a really popular one. I have Mask of Shadows by Lindsay Miller. This is the first book in a duology. This is the second book. It is Ruin of Stars. And this is a book that I picked up one day just because I was at the bookstore and it just looked interesting, and I read this and I really, really enjoyed it. But then the sequel came out and I just never read it, and that's really upsetting because I actually really liked the first one. And I do really want to read this book because there's like a cliffhanger at the end of this that I want to, you know, have some resolution on. But I actually really like this, the first book, and I think it deserves a lot more recognition because it was really good. It's also one of the first like LGBTQ diverse books I've ever read. The main character is gender fluid, I do believe. Right in the description it actually says they're gender fluid, which I really appreciate, is that like, you know, the diversity is very upfront instead of being something that you like happily stumble into. But this is one of the first books I've ever read with a gender fluid main character and just like general LGBTQ diversity, so I thought that was really cool. This book follows Sal, and that is our gender fluid main character, and they are a thief and they are becoming an assassin so they can like move up in the ranks of society and become one of the queen's assassins. And there's this big contest where she's competing against these other people trying to be the next assassin, because there's like a group of 5, I think, assassins, so they're trying to replace one of the other ones because they died or something like that. So it's basically she's trying to join the queen's left hand, which is the personal assassins of the queen. And so she goes to this competition and there's a lot of killing and assassinating, and then there's this adorable romance. The romance in this book is so cute. I really, really loved it, and for that reason I wanted to actually reread this book so I can read the sequel. But I really like this book. I feel like I'd give it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I never rated it at the time because I wasn't rating books really at the time, but I love this book and I really want to finish this duology. Next up, we have the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard. I've read The Red Queen and Glass Sword and half of King's Cage, and then I gave up. And I kind of want to finish the series, but also at the same time I don't. I really liked Red Queen. I gave it 4 stars. And then Glass Sword, I gave like 1 star. That book is literal garbage. And then I think the series just goes downhill from there. But these books follow Mare, and she lives in this world where silver bloods, people with silver blood, have magical abilities, and people with red blood do not, but she has red blood, and she has an ability, so she's, like, special, right? And so she gets all caught up in the court, and, you know, there's a love triangle. Very tropey. This book is very, very tropey, but I thought it was just entertaining to read, so I really liked it. Glass Sword was literal garbage. Like, I hate that book so much. So, like, it's, like, on some level I want to finish the series, but at the same time, like, I don't care. I hate these books. Like, I think the story, like, really just falls off and becomes really bad after this book. Next up, we have Frostblood by Ellie Blake. This is a trilogy. Yeah, and I've only read this book in this trilogy. And I actually really enjoyed this one as well. This one is also very, like, tropey and, like, I don't know. I can just say really tropey. I just remember it being very, like, predictable, but enjoyable at the same time. Like, it was predictable and nothing really that mind-blowing, but still enjoyable to read. I can't really remember much about the plot, though. So basically, this book follows Ruby, and she's a fireblood, and she has to conceal her abilities because the Frostblood ruling class has killed off all of the firebloods because they don't want the threat. But now, the prisoner firebloods are forced to fight against these Frostblood champions in these battles that they're not really meant to win. And she's just trying to take down the Frostblood monarchy and equality to the firebloods. I don't know. I liked the first book. I do remember liking this, but I can't remember much about it again. If I'd want to read the next ones, I'd have to reread this. But it's got, like, it's very, like, pretty big font. And it's, like, not much words on each page, so I feel like it'd be fast to reread, because I remember I read it really fast, but I'm not rereading it right now. Next, we have Carrion by Ray Morel. I've read this book, but now Wayward Son came out, and I've only read, like, 40 pages, and I don't want to read it. But, this is now a series, which I think is a bad move, because all I've heard is that Wayward Son is nowhere near as good as Carrion, and I think that Carrion on its own is a very, actually, good book. But I don't think it should be a series, and I have Wayward Son. I'm gonna read the series. I just don't think it should be a series. But, if you don't know, this book is basically Harry Potter fanfic, more specifically Drarry fanfic, and, you know, it's enjoyable in what it is, because although it is very, very similar and based basically on Harry Potter, I think it does diverge from Harry Potter, and I really love the magic system in this book because it's nothing like Harry Potter. It's very creative and really cool. And I actually really do like the twist on the chosen one trope. It's like, you know, like a shitty chosen one, you know? I like it. I like it. This book is good. I think it shouldn't be a series. But I'll read it at some point. By the way, so I got the dust jacket thing that you can put on the hardcover one, and I can't make it look good. Like, it's bubbling out in this way that I don't like, and I hate it. Next up, we have one that really upsets me that I haven't finished, but that's the Illuminate Files by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I've read Illuminate and I've read Gemina, but I have not read Obsidio. And it's upsetting. Like, I really love Illuminate, and I really love Gemina. Like, I'm not usually a sci-fi person, but these books are so good, and I just haven't finished it. Like, I haven't finished Obsidio, because I would have to reread Illuminate and Gemina, because I don't remember any of the details. Like, I remember the characters, and I remember what happens in the story, but I don't remember the details about, like, the Illuminate the Illuminate group and those kind of things. Like, I don't remember the details, so I need to reread these books. And I am probably gonna listen to the audiobook because I read them physically the first time I read them, but I think reading the audiobook might be a fun way to, like, catch up on the series, but also try out a new format. But I'm so sad that I didn't read Obsidio when I was, like, fresh in my mind. Oh, how do I describe these books? They follow different characters, but it's the same storyline, and it comes together in the end. So this book follows Katie Grant, and she is super smart. She's, like, a hacker, and basically this corporation attacks this planet, and then they have to escape on these 2 ships, and there's, like, funny business going on, and this, what is it? It's, like, a sickness of sorts? Yeah, there's a plague that's broken out on one of the ships, and it basically makes people into, like, these crazy zombies and stuff like that. And then there's this, like, AI called Aiden, and he's, like, an awesome character. And, like, this AI is controlling the ship, and it's just space madness, and it's super good. And if you didn't know, this is told in like multimedia, so it's like super dope and actually really quick to read. Like, they're really big books, but it's pretty quick to read just because of the multimedia format, and I really love these books. So I'd recommend reading them. Next up, we have Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi. I've only read Shatter Me, and I read this in October. Yeah, I actually somewhat enjoyed this book. It was good. Like, it was decent. I think I rated like 3 stars. I like this book, and I want to continue with the series. I just haven't gotten around to it. It just hasn't enticed me that much because, I don't know. I read the first book and I really enjoyed it, but I was like, do I want to spend much more time with Juliet right now? No. Juliet's not the most fun person to hang out with in her mind. So I decided to put a pause. I own Unravel Me, but I just haven't read it yet. Basically, this is like dystopian, and our main character is Juliet, and she has a lethal touch. And then one day the reestablishment takes her, this is like an organization, it takes her and wants to use her as a weapon. And that's kind of what I'm going to tell you. If you haven't read this book, I mean, like, you probably know what it's about anyway. You know, it's a classic in the YA genre. And, yeah, that's a really bad description, I'm sorry. But next we have another classic YA series. And that is The Selection by Kirkas. Look at those tabs. Look at that. That was before I was good at tabbing books and not having them super long, but I've only read the first book in this series, and I really dislike this book. Like, I like but dislike it because it's very mindless and easy to read because it's like kind of bad, but at the same time infuriating. Like, I hate the main character. She's literally the worst main character. She's so indecisive and annoying, but I love like Maxon and like some of the characters in this book, so it's really hard because this is like just like The Bachelorette or like The Bachelor, basically. It's mindless, but not good, you know what I mean? I want to finish this series because, again, they're so easy to read. Like, they're so dumb that they're fun to read, but I just haven't gotten around to it. The end of this book really pissed me off, and so I just didn't get around to reading The Elite, but I will probably at some point. I feel like that's all I'm saying this series. Like, I'll probably read this at some point. This book it's like a dystopian, and this book follows America's Singer, really on the nose name, and she is a singer, and she, basically, society is now split up into these, like, categories, or, like, what are they called? I don't know what it's called. Basically, they're split into these, like, levels in society, so ones are, like, the royals, and then, like, 8s, I think. Is 8 the bottom? I think 8's the bottom. It might be 6, I don't know. Or she's a 6? No. She's a 5. Her boy toy's a 6. And 8's the bottom. I think I'm correct. And basically, there's this thing called The Selection where all these girls compete to marry the prince. And she goes into the selection, but all she wants is, like, the money from it. She doesn't actually, like, want to win. But then, like, surprise, surprise, she gets all swept up and Princey wants to marry her, and there's a lot going on for some reason, even though, like, logically this book should be, like, 1 book long, but that's fine. So next we're going to talk about Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I've only read Shadow and Bone in this trilogy, and I decently enjoy this book. This book is enjoyable. I don't think it's good, but it's enjoyable. I read this, like, I think 2.5 or 3 stars. I can't remember. Yeah, I enjoyed reading it enough, but the fact that I know who the end game is and how much I hate them is kind of something that's deterring me from finishing this series, because I hate Alina. She's like a horrible main character. Like, I literally hate her, and I hate Mel, and so it's really frustrating to read because I know who's endgame, and it makes me sad. And I spoiled myself for something in the second book. Like, I was reading the second book and then I spoiled myself on something, and it really upset me. Like, I was looking up a Larkling fan art because, you know, that's my guilty pleasure is a Larkling. And then this spoiler for a plot point in Siege and Storm popped out at me. And it was really upsetting because I didn't even want to get spoiled. Like, I'm usually fine with spoilers, but I didn't want to get spoiled, and I did. And I'm upset. Like, I'm boycotting Siege and Storm because I accidentally spoiled myself on a plot point that I really wish I got to read. This book, again, very classic in the YA genre. There's the TV show coming out, which I have opinions on. Like, I don't think things should be being made into TV shows. TV shows butcher things. Movies can butcher things, but at least it's, like, set, you know, like, TV shows have to pad the runtime, and movies I feel like can stick more to the plot points better. That's a quick opinion on me and book adaptations. But this book follows Alina, and she finds out that she is a Grisha one day. And Grisha are people with magical powers, and she is this fun type of Grisha that can control light, basically. Like, she's a sun summoner. And so this is really important because there's this thing called the Shadowfold, which is just like this thing of darkness that is splitting Ravka, her country, in two. So she has to go and train her ability so that she can, like, split the Shadowfold and make everyone happy, but then there's stuff going on in between. And I actually think this book is pretty good, but it's kind of bad at the same time. But I'm just angry at myself for spoiling myself. I'm angry at, like, the universe for letting me get spoiled for that thing in Siege and Storm. It's upsetting. The final one I'm going to talk to you about might get people riled, because I know it gets people riled up sometimes, but I have not finished the Harry Potter series. I read up to book 5, like I think I read book 5, and then I did not finish book 6 or book 7. And I've watched the movies. I know that doesn't really make people happy, but I watched the movies and then I read the books. And I read up to book 5 and I enjoyed them. I liked them a lot, like I marathoned them, but then I kind of just got bored. Like the 6th book was boring me, so I was like, peace bitch, done with you. And I regret doing that. But yeah, I'm one of those people where I like Harry Potter, but it's not one of those things that's like life-changing, my favorite thing ever. So it doesn't really bother me that much. Like, I like Harry Potter, but he's not my favorite, you know what I mean? But yeah, there's not much else to really say about these. If you need a description, Harry Potter's a wizard. I just haven't finished it. Maybe I'll finish it one day, I don't know. Yeah, so that was all the series that I've not finished yet. Again, if you think I'm being a dumb bitch for not finishing one or more of these series, comment below and tell me which ones are worth it. And I'll move them off of my priority list. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. My name's Bailey. Bye-bye!